Look, I made a promise to him.
Here's lesson number 1, kid. Don't watch the mouth. Watch the hands.
You're just gonna go home and leave me here to figure this out for myself? You good with that, Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Stop listening to me! That's the best idea you've had all day.
I'm sorry.
When will I know I'm ready?
You won't. It's a leap of faith. That's all it is.
Hey everyone, I'm back with another animation breakdown, and this time I want to discuss the role and effect a mentor has on protagonists and their story. When thinking of mentors in a narrative, your mind can go to an older but caring teacher, nurturing their protagonists to reach their goals and succeed in whatever way they want to, and that does describe a lot of them. The mentors can come in various forms, have different modes behind helping the protagonist, and be on their own character arcs that make their role as a mentor more challenging. And some may not even want to help the protagonist at all. They could be parental figures, coaches, relatives, bosses, teachers, or really anything to protagonists before they fill their role as mentor. All these factors and more could go into the creation and use of a mentor figure in a story, because not every mentor has the same purpose to that story. Moving up preconceptions of a mentor beyond the bearded elder offering vague or smart-sounding advice from time to time can help artists and storytellers experience that dynamic differently. The relationship between a student and a mentor can be imperative in a story, because it can often shape the choices and mindsets of the protagonist or student, and the mentor tends to have an inherent power over the student as they hold more experience and knowledge of the situation at hand, and how they choose to use that power will shape what kind of mentor they become. A very simplified way I like to break down the spectrum of mentor types is the 3 A's: the attentive, the ambivalent, and the abuser. And I describe it as a spectrum because characters are often not static, and one type of mentor can morph into another as the story continues. Now, when talking about the mentor figure, there are a whole host of media icons to choose from. But I specifically want to discuss this in the realm of animation because many popular animated works tend to have younger protagonists needing others to guide them through their journeys. And of course, this isn't indicative of the entire medium, as it is in fact a medium capable of telling any story it chooses to. And you know, I always like to give some love to cartoons. So whether the mentors are advising the chosen one in their path to save the day, a regular person through a difficult time in their lives, or even actively working against the protagonist, we can all agree they can play a major role in a story. So my lovely listeners, let's examine some of those roles together.
So, Todd thinks you give pretty good advice. And great tea.
The key to both is proper aging. What's on your mind?
There's no honor for me without the Avatar.
Zuko. Even if you did capture the Avatar, I'm not so sure it would solve our problems.
Why are you telling me these things?
It is important to draw wisdom from many different places. If we take it from only one place, it becomes rigid and stale.
The attentive mentor is one that most people think of when they imagine a good one, both in real life and in fiction. And when discussing good mentors, it would be an absolute crime if we didn't use the man, the myth, the legend, former general, best father figure around and tea lover himself, Uncle Iroh from The Last Airbender. Now, Iroh embodies many of the traits we would already assume about a mentor figure, being older and wiser, advising Zuko, his nephew, and offering encouraging words and sage advice when needed. But as the story of Avatar goes on, you can see that Iroh wasn't just a good mentor because he was kind and experienced. It was because he knew how to properly advise the people around him to be better, no matter what it cost him in the process. If you're somehow unfamiliar with Avatar, the story very basically follows Aang, the last airbender, as he tries to master bending all the elements, water, air, fire, and earth, and defeat the Fire Lord before he takes over the world. And the initial antagonist was Zuko, the exiled prince of the Fire Nation, aided by his uncle Iroh as he tries to track down Aang and give him to his father to reclaim his honor. Now Zuko started the story as an angry, traumatized, and irrationally stubborn character, thanks to years of abuse at the hands of his father and the recent physical trauma suffered by him as well. And Iroh knew from the beginning that capturing the Avatar and being Prince again wouldn't make Zuko happy or be the right choice. But throughout the journey, Iroh allowed Zuko the independence to realize his own path on his own. He, of course, doesn't enable Zuko's unwarranted bursts of rage and stubbornness, and steps in when necessary. But short of Zuko endangering his or others' lives, Iroh allows Zuko to screw up, to hide things from him, to take steps back morally, to ignore his lessons and be hurt by the consequences. Iroh never used violence to teach Zuko, the way Zuko's father excused the abuse, and never forced Zuko to do anything physically. He did routinely push Zuko to take a hard look at himself and truly consider what will make him happy. And even when Zuko betrayed his uncle in a moment that truly mattered, a moment that Zuko himself considered the end of the relationship, Iroh embraces his nephew, shedding tears of joy that Zuko finally found his true path, helping the Avatar bring peace. Iroh was a mentor to all who needed or asked, even those who would be considered an enemy at the time, and did so without condescension or ulterior motive. Iroh, being the type of teacher he was, wasn't because the writers wanted to craft the perfect father figure to a character. Iroh's mentorship was an inherent and understandable effect of the life he had led thus far. Before the chronological beginning of the show, we become aware that I was once a powerful and feared general and heir to the throne of the Fire Nation, who was responsible for almost seizing one of the most powerful Earth Kingdoms. And we also learned that he lost his only son due to that siege, which permanently altered him. I'll go on record to say that the best mentors were students at the time who were able to take the lessons given to them by others and life to better themselves and people around them. Iroh could have very easily allowed his loss to harden him to the world and become cold, but instead, through all the pain, he learned that violence and power can't ever be the way to peace. He learned from other nations and their method to society and respected them. He humbled himself. He became a guide and a father figure to Zuko, gave him knowledge and freedom to find his own sense of honor. In the end, he guided all our protagonists to realize their place in the final battle, freed the very colony that marked him on the path of redemption, and finally opened his tea shop ready to live a peaceful life, and I'm sure to continue passing along more words of advice to his beloved nephew Zuko, who is now the Fire Lord.
I was never angry with you. I was sad because I was afraid you lost your way. I did lose my way. But you found it again.
Glossaryck, don't you want to come with me? I thought we were friends.
Friends? Well, that's such a simple concept. You know, even though I knew this was coming, it's still kind of a surprise. Hey! Hey, look! It worked! Yes, probably, but you'll be fine. Or not. Anyway, your spell is collapsing.
But I need you.
Maybe this is what you need.
So now that we started with the good, it would be pretty easy to immediately jump to the bad. But this type of mentor doesn't really fall into either category, and ignoring this mentorship style and the role they can play in a narrative would be ridiculous, especially since it's gaining more popularity in recent works. And when discussing the gray area of characters, there is no better example of a truly neutral mentor than Glossaryck from Star vs. the Force of Evil. Now, various mentors can start off this way, but then morph into the attentive or the abuser, which we will talk about soon, but this mentoring style does leave an effect on the student receiving it, and it can span the test of the whole story. And Glossaryck certainly maintains the style all throughout his time as Star's magical advisor. Star vs. the Force of Evil is about Star, a protagonist looking to better her magic, live up to her role as Princess of the Butterfly Kingdom, but still maintain her individual identity. Glossaryck becomes a magical teacher, as he was for all the previous princesses turned queens, when Star inherits the family's spellbook, to which he is bound. Though while never being inherently bad, he certainly never made guiding Star easy on her. This type of mentor tends to be more flexible in terms of morals, and this translates to how they advise. Glossaryck is an all-knowing figure who knows all the preceding events, and he knows how all the events of the show will play out before they even happen. And he has always stated that his commitment wasn't to Star or her family, but to the state of magic itself. There are times when Glossaryck negates telling Star crucial information, doesn't help her when she really needs it, and even betrays Star to her enemies. And while this may seem terrible and cruel, from Glossaryck's perspective, and the code we as the viewers know he follows without question, a lot of what he does is sound. He is bound to the book, so he is bound to guide whoever holds the book, no matter who possesses it. He doesn't see a point in caring about Star as a person beyond helping her reach her goals. And throughout his mentorship of Star, we see that he does take his role of preparing her to be queen very seriously, even if it isn't easy for Star. And even in the end, when Star wants to end all magic, an act that would destroy Glossaryck himself, he doesn't try to stop her. He smiles, accepts his fate, and bids goodbye to Star. It goes without saying this type of mentorship can be very complicated. This mentor really doesn't have to care about the student's well-being at all. They can either be extremely goal-oriented, as with Glossaryck, or completely avoiding the goal at hand to the point it hinders the protagonist, and they can often not want to take the mentorship role at all. They can either be the seasoned guide to the protagonist they need, or just another obstacle to get past depending on the day. And their loyalties may never really lie with the protagonist, and be that as it may, this can also be what the protagonist actually needs. Just as all mentors come in different forms, so can the students, and the role they need to fill. Star has been surrounded by people, friends, parents, her best friend Mako, that positively influenced her morals, but most had an emotional attachment to her, that either made being impartial or honest with her very difficult. Glossaryck was always honest with Star, even when it was painful, and his guidance did push Star to realize her full potential, even if it meant ending his own life. He, like Ivo, let his students make mistakes, and despite giving what seemed like too much independence, it wasn't without caution. So whether or not you think the style is okay, it can lead to great outcomes, which is more than I could say for the last type.
I'm proud of you, kid.
Glossaryck, what's going to happen to you?
Well, a good captain always goes down with his ship.
I will not protect her. You will do as I ask.
Oh, yeah? Or what?
Or you will suffer the consequences in her place. Energy when we invaded the fright zone together.
I remember you draining me.
Yes, but I did help you become more powerful. How did you let this happen, don't you see? I want you to go further than I did. But you need to be smarter than me, stronger than me.
Then help me.
And unfortunately, this brings us to our last type of mentor, the abuser. And anyone who has seen her in action throughout the show knows there are a few better examples than Shadow Weaver from She-Ra, Princess of Power. Shadow Weaver was one of the antagonistic forces within She-Ra, and was also the primary caretaker for Adora, the primary protagonist, and Catra, the antagonist to an ally, all throughout their childhood. She's a powerful sorceress who wanted to stop at nothing to gain more power and unlock all areas of magic no matter what it took, and unfortunately, it took Adora and Catra's childhood. From a storytelling view, this mentor is the foil to the attentive. This mentor will only act in their best interest and is usually only using the students to further their own agenda, an agenda that is often hidden from the students. Instead of allowing independence to grow beyond them, the abuser will only allow the students to stay completely dependent to them, and them alone. When the student inevitably suffers a failure, the student will be blamed completely and be met with severe punishment. In some cases, the abusers know full well what they are doing is wrong and don't care, or they truly believe they are in the right to do this to further their goals. Both Catra and Adora show signs of trauma that this kind of mentoring can cause all throughout the story. Inherent mistrust of others, using violence to get their way, viewing real affection and quiet leadership as weakness, trying to stay in the bubble the abuser created out of fear. And while Adora left this bubble much sooner than Catra, we can see these effects on her as well. And though it took much longer, Catra was able to escape Shadow Weaver's teachings as well. They were both able to find proper guidance and a real family to love them, and freedom to learn on their own. Abuse and manipulation will never properly mentor anyone, and nothing can ever excuse this type of behavior. It won't make a student stronger, it won't toughen them up or prepare them for the quote-unquote real world. All it does is traumatize the students and potentially scar them for years to come. It's only when the students can escape this and realize how damaging it was that they will start to learn. And ironically, Often the greatest lessons a student subjugated to this trauma do are the ones the mentor didn't intend. They learn to stand up against unjust authority, to care for others in a way they never were, to work through issues on their own, the right way. It is not because of their mentor, but in spite of them, they can grow.
Always been a disappointment. You learned nothing from me.
Oh no, I've learned everything from you. How to predict when you strike, how to dodge, how to resist.
So, I guess the best takeaway is that no matter what type of mentor a protagonist has, they are only guide to help the protagonist reach their goal. They are not the end-all be-all. All mentors can screw up. Not every student learns the same way. Even the attentive mentor can't handhold their students through their journey, but only give them the tools and knowledge needed to do it themselves. Ambivalence may seem like the best of both worlds, but some students can never truly know where they stand to the teacher or to themselves, and that can make it a very confusing journey. And yet again, I will say abusive methods when teaching will always backfire, but the student doesn't have to be controlled by them or be destroyed by them, and that's a lesson in itself. Mentors are meant to act as a guide for the students to grow beyond them, to do better than them. And if the mentor truly does their job right, they learn just as much from the students as they taught them.
How do I know I'm not gonna mess it up? You won't.
I hate to leave the thing.